She is the wife of the late Raymond C. Berhannan. Mrs. Berhannan's family, the Swans, is one of the oldest settlers in the area. The Swans are from the Tuscarora Stockbridge tribe of the Mohawk Oneida Nation. The Berhannans are from the Binghamton, New York area. Mrs. Berhannan is a homemaker with 3 children, and she has held several jobs outside of the home. Mr. Berhannan was employed at Corning Glass. He retired after 30 years. This interview is being conducted on October 26, 1990 at Mrs. Berhannan's home on 4257 Prospect Hill Road, Horseheads, New York. The interviewer is Nellie Jennings. Also with her, representing the Chemung County Historical Society Oral History Project, is Eva Williams. Winnie, I know that you've been spending a lot of time at the library, and I know that you have a lot of history about your family. And so one of the first things I'd like to ask you is, when did your family first come to the area?
Now that's something I don't know, because my grandfather was here years ago. I never met him. He died before any of us children were born. But I can go back in the library as far as 1900, and there was some before that, but they haven't got any records.
Did they ever tell you why they came to the area? Like your mother was.
My mother was from Pennsylvania. And I know why she was here in this area, because after she graduated from school, she took a job as a domestic and came here with a family from Pennsylvania.
Oh, how
and
interesting.
Settled in a family's home up in West Elmira to work for them.
So now your mother's name was Mary?
Mary Jane Washington.
And your father's name?
Was Fred Swan.
And what kind of, your mother was a domestic, and what did your father do?
He had, let's see now, the first child they were married 12 years before they had any children, and my sister was the first child. But during those years, he had a lot of jobs like maintenance work at the bank in Horseheads. He used to go around. He had his own waxing machine, and he used to wax in the churches down in their rec rooms where they give dances and had different things going on. He did that kind of work. He also made the very famous Brown's ice cream that people used to come from miles around from Watkins and all over to eat it for Charlie Brown's drugstore, which the drugstore is still there in the square in Horseheads. And I think he had job cleaning the fire station in Horseheads. He had 2 or 3 jobs on top of making this ice cream, this famous ice cream.
Oh, isn't that something?
And during the Depression, when a lot of people were in soup lines, he still had little jobs that kept us going.
Oh, isn't that great? Now, did they talk about voting?
No, not until I got a little older, and then I questioned his voting. And you couldn't sway him. He said he was a staunch Democrat and he was not going to be swayed. And he didn't care who was running. He voted Democrat, straight Democrat ticket.
That was the old school of thinking.
That's right.
You didn't split your vote.
That's right. You couldn't talk him out of anything or talk to him about the candidates.
Where did you attend elementary school, and was that a positive experience?
Yes, I loved school. I went to school. See, my sister is a year older than I am. And when she was old enough to go in the 1st grade, my mother thought that I would be company for my sister when she sent her to 1st grade. My sister was 5 and I was 4. So she sent me along to be company for my sister because there was no other black kids in the school. And after about a month, Mother found out I was falling to sleep in school. So then they questioned how old I was. And they said, I couldn't stay because I was too young. So they had a kindergarten in Horseheads. It was out of this lady's home, and they put me in the kindergarten. And then from there I went on back through first grade again.
And what school did you attend?
Horseheads.
Horseheads?
Horseheads School.
Okay. Is that's just the name of it? Is a central school?
No, it was just Horseheads grade school.
Oh. Now, where did you attend high school?
Horseheads High School.
Oh, now where was that at?
It's right there on Center Street where the Horseheads High School is now. They just tore down the grade school just a year or so ago, and the high school is part of it. I think is still there, and they built around it and made it enlarged it. But that's still there.
Oh, that was great. So what years were you in high school?
Now, in the high school, during those years, 7th and 8th grade was in the high school.
Oh.
And we had the 7th and 8th, and right on up through, there was freshman and sophomore, junior, and senior.
Oh.
Now, I got right to the senior year, and I quit. But I went back and got my diploma later.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
So you went to school until 1938.
I think it was 38.
And who were your friends and what were your school activities?
Oh, there was a lot of them. We took just about anything that we have there. I had cooking in school. Now, I love school. And there was some of the teachers, I can still remember some of their names.
Oh, really?
Yes. And I took cooking in school, and I took all kind of sports. I love to play sports. And but mostly I liked to study algebra. I loved algebra.
Oh.
And
what sports did you
we had
participate in?
Just about. Let's see now. What was it? Volleyball, and took up some kind of a clog dancing we had there.
Oh,
I
really?
took that, and there was numerous things. I hadn't thought about this in years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you keep in contact with some of your old school friends?
There is 4 girls that I went all through school with. The other day, which was last week, Thursday, it's the second time this year, we got together and had lunch. We do it very often. We keep in touch with each other.
What were their names?
Well, I don't know their married name of only one of them, but
That's all right.
there is Marjorie Austin, Lorraine Churchill, Loretta Kaiser, Jane Swartout, she's the one I know her married name, Jane Ostrander Swartout, and myself. And we get together quite a bit. And we've been together twice this year, and we're going to make a third time around Christmas time.
Well, isn't that great?
We talk over old times and who's gone and who's still here and what they're doing. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Oh. Now, what year did you get married?
1944.
Well, that was right after the start of really World War II.
Mm-hmm.
Was your husband in the Army then?
No, he was exempt. He was exempt because of him working in, he was a mechanic in those years when we first got married. And they said that he could be left behind to work on any government trucks if they needed work done on him here.
Oh.
But so he wasn't disqualified. What do you call it? He wasn't 4F, and he wasn't.
But they needed him.
His classification, I can't remember it. I did know it at the time. So you're going back a lot of years.
I certainly am. So that was quite interesting that he was able to stay home.
Yeah.
And
let's see, 2 of his brothers. He had 2 other brothers. One of them went through service, was overseas, Norman, and Claude. He went as far as boot camp. He went in the Navy, and they found out his eyes were bad, and he faked seeing the chart. He memorized it before he got it. So they found out about it, and they made him go home.
So now, when you got married, did you stay home, or did you work too, or?
I worked.
What did you do
dry
during this year?
cleaner. I worked in I worked at the bridge work before I got married, and they were hiring women at the bridge works up in Elmira Heights.
Was that the first experience that Bridgeworks had hiring women?
I think so. There was quite a few women there when I heard that they were hiring women, so I went up and got hired. And they were making parts for aircraft carriers, and besides bridges. and they had a war contract too.
So now, can you, I'm just interested, can you remember what your pay rate was in those days?
Cannot remember. I can't remember.
But it
was steady work.
It was new experience for women working in that type of factory?
Yes, because I worked out in what they called the yard painting, and we painted bridges, parts of bridges that hadn't been put together yet. Mm-hmm. And then I went inside and took up welding, and I love that.
Oh, so you really got a skill.
Did I ever get one right there on the spot?
Oh, that's something. What did, as a woman from that era, do you think women have come a long way since then?
Yes and no. I can't distinguish why I say that either, except they're into jobs then that men were into. The pay is much greater than it was then. So is it for the men. But women, I don't think have ever reached or will ever reach men's pay doing the same job. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Did they have unions then during the war?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Did the women join the unions?
I don't know if we were... I think we paid union dues, if I can remember back that far. Uh-huh. I think we did.
So, what are some of the other things? Now, you were married and you had so how old's your oldest child?
Roxy was born in 1945. Mm-hmm. And there's 5 years between all my children.
Oh.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you had your children, and what do they do now? They're all grown.
They're all grown.
And out on their own.
On their own. Well, my oldest son lives with me.
Uh-huh.
And my youngest son, he works for Corning Glass. Uh-huh. And my oldest son, right now, he's not working. He just had an eye examination yesterday where he's got eye problems quite badly. And we're not sure, but we think he has to have an operation on his eyes.
Oh. Mm-hmm. I hope everything comes out well. And now, does Roxy work? She doesn't. Where does she live?
She's a nurse. She lives in Cerritos, California.
Oh, so you've got to.
Yeah.
Can go across the country.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm.
What was their schooling like? Where did they go to school?
Roxy went to St. Peter and Paul her first year, and then she transferred over to Beecher.
That's right, in Elmira.
St. Peter and Paul in Elmira. Mm-hmm. And then to Beecher School on Sullivan Street in Elmira. And then from there she went to, they had the academy, didn't they have, there to the academy, yes, Elmira Free Academy, which was then where Ernie Davis is now, on Lake Street. Daniel went to Beecher School, and then to, I think during those years he, what's that? Academy was going on, or wasn't it?
Did he go to Booth?
No, I mean, when did, I'm trying to figure out when Ernie Davis Junior High came into being. I think that they had the Ernie Davis Junior High then, and he went there for his junior high, and then up to when they moved the academy up on Hoffman Street to his sophomore year. And then we moved to Horseheads, and he finished up in Horseheads High School.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Oh. Been through the school district.
Have we? And Michael, he went Beecher, Ernie Davis, and he never got to the academy because we had been up here then to Horseheads. And so he did all of his high school up here. I think he finished 1 year of junior high here in Horseheads and then on to the high school. So both the boys graduated from Horseheads.
Oh. So now, do you feel your children get a good education?
I am sure of it. one thing I discussed with them after we'd been here, and they had gone through the high school, I asked them to tell me what they thought about the education of the Elmira Free Academy compared to the Horseheads High School. Do they think they had a better education in one place than the other? And they said yes, Horseheads. They liked the way the teachers taught here in Horseheads.
Oh, that's very
They loved
nice.
it. They said that they could go to them and ask questions and get things done, and they loved the Horsehead School.
Well, that's a compliment.
Mm-hmm.
So that you really didn't find school a trauma. Your children didn't, and as parents, you did not.
No, they did well, because I would go to school the first day of their school year, every year, and talk to the principal and tell him why my children were in school. I said they came here to learn, and that's what I expect of them. And I want no foolishness out of them. I want them here learning, and if they disrupt a class, I want to know about it right away. And they said that they thought that more mothers should do that. And the minute anything happened, I knew about it, which was not only maybe during their school years, all three children, maybe a half a dozen times.
And so you had a real working relationship
Yes.
with the schools.
Yes,
and,
I did.
And that was good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah, did you and your husband, did you vote?
Every year. We didn't miss a voting. Even when I was a patient in a hospital, I was there under, they was trying to find out what was wrong with me one year, and I said, I've got to get out to vote. They let me out to vote. I never missed a year voting since I turned 21. I have voted for the primaries and for the presidentials, any election that came along.
Why do you feel that was so important?
Because of the idea of what they let you know, that your vote, one vote could sway the whole process. You could get in there who you wanted, you could get out of there who you wanted. You could, and women especially, needed to vote. I kept thinking about this long before I was 21, that I had to vote, and I had to study on the different people that were running. And they drummed in us when we were in school about how to use your vote. And I couldn't wait. And I know for a fact that one year when my husband and I first moved up here, that we caused a candidate to lose an election. He lost by 2 votes. We didn't know the candidate because we had just moved here. And we asked questions of different people about these different candidates. And when the election came down, he lost by 2 votes, and those were my husband and my votes, and we knew it.
Well,
And it was scary. It was real scary.
But what a tremendous imprint that made
Yeah.
on both of you to
Yeah.
continue to,
Yeah.
with this process.
Uh-huh.
Well, tell me, why do you think they say enough young people don't vote now?
That's true.
And why do you think that is? Is it because it's not taught enough in the schools, or the importance of it, or what?
I don't think the importance of it is being taught. And I know if people talk to me about any candidate after an election, and they talk to me about any candidate, the first thing I say to them, did you vote? And if they say no, and I'll say, I don't want to talk to you. I'll talk to you if you have voted. We could discuss it. But I will not talk to a person that did not vote.
Because they really didn't participate in the process.
No, but they have an awful lot to say, which they should have exercised that at the poll and not to me. But it's strange. There is not enough taught to these younger kids about voting.
So how important one vote
Can be. Yes.
I'd like to back up a little, Winnie, and have you tell me about your brothers and your sister.
Okay. My sister is the oldest, Miriam. Mom and Dad were married 12 years before they had their first child. And believe it or not, the first child was born on the 12th day of the month for that year, 1923. Then came Winifred, me, then my brother Fred, then my brother Bill, and then twin boys, James and John. The mother said that's enough. After the 6 of us, no more. And she said she'd had it with the 6 kids right in a row.
So now all of you attended the Horsehead schools?
Yes.
Because your mother and father lived there on Division?
Division Street.
Division Street, all of those years. And
well, when they first got married, they lived on North Main Street in Horseheads, because that's where Dad was born, on North Main Street. And they lived there. And then after a few years, then they bought the home on Division Street. And my brother John's widow and still have the family home.
Isn't that wonderful after all these years?
Yeah.
So, tell me a little about Fred.
Let's see, Fred was a third. Well, let me tell you something interesting first before I tell you about Fred.
Please do.
Dad's name was Fred. And the first child, being a girl, he wanted a boy. So he gave my sister the name of Marion, which could be either boy or girl. But with an O, it means boy. So he named her Marion with an O. The second child was me. He still wanted that boy. So I was Winifred. Third child, it was a boy. So it was Fred. Fred Jr. So let's see. Fred, he was the third, as I said. And, I don't know. Fred was the type of fellow that he was quite stingy with his money. When we were kids, we all had an equal amount of allowance. And Fred would wait till we spent our allowance. And we always offered each other what we bought with our, like candy or little cookies or gum or whatever. We had our little bags. We'd go to the store and come back. And he would have offered around to each other some of our goodies. Fred wouldn't spend his money right away. Then one day we kept an eye on Fred. He would sneak out from his bedroom and go over town to the grocery store or the candy store. And he'd sneak back in. We saw the bag. We always saw the bag. But he wouldn't share with us. And that's one of the things we all remember about Fred. He would not share with us. But there was quite a bit of love among all 6 of us. We helped each other out. We looked out for one another. There was quite a lot of love there.
And Fred always lived here.
Fred always lived in Horseheads. He went in the service. He was in the Seabees. And he had, over in Trinidad, he got something they called jungle rot on his feet and part of his back. And he was in hospitals in Long Island and hospital in Rhode Island for at different times when this would break out again. And at one time they talked about amputating part of his toes on one foot, but the nurse said no. She kept telling the doctor that he didn't need to have his toes amputated. And the nurse also told my brother, she said, told Fred, don't you let the doctor touch those toes. You can get over it. And he did.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So now tell me a little about Bill. Bill had an interesting life.
Bill went in the service when he was 17. He couldn't wait to go in the service. And Mother signed the papers, so he joined the Navy. And he was on aircraft carriers. I don't remember. There was a couple of write-ups they had about Bill on this one aircraft carrier where he was a cook on the aircraft carrier. This one day when planes were coming over, the enemy planes, part of the boat, the aircraft carrier he was on fire. And it had killed a lot of the men that were manning the guns. The cooks came up from the lower decks and manned the guns and helped get the enemy planes. But during this time, somehow, some part of the ship, the aircraft carrier that was on fire, or else planes that had come down on the aircraft carrier, Bill got burnt quite badly on his hands. And until he died in 1985, you could still see the scars on his hands.
Oh, so that he really saw action then.
Yes, he saw some at sea.
Now, he did some interesting things because he was out in California, right?
Yes, he was out there. He did, he was in bit parts. He had bit parts in movies out there. He did some commercials on television, because I've seen some of the commercials when they used to give cigarette commercials.
Was it Winston's?
Um,
Or Marlboro?
no, I can't remember. I know it, but I can't remember it right now. Oh, what was that? It was a cigarette commercial. And then he was in he had a couple of scenes in some of the situation comedies, because I've seen him in those. And then he was a chauffeur for some of the movie stars at one time. He told me, very interesting, Mae West wanted to hire him.
Oh, really?
And he said no, he didn't. She was trying her darndest to get Bill to be her chauffeur, and Bill kept saying no, no. But I think that time too, his wife didn't want him to be Mae West's chauffeur because she was telling us about it. The wife was. And then he was a doorman at the Huntington Hotel on Nob Hill, and he was a doorman at the Fairmont Hotel on Nob Hill. One restaurant or one hotel hired him away from the other one by giving him more money. But they still remained friends. The hotel he was hired away from.
Well, that was nice.
Yes.
He was one of the travelers then. Now the twins.
James and John. John went into the service, and he was over in Okinawa, and he was in Japan, and he came back unscathed. Jim was exempt because that would have left. He was the only son left during the war. I guess there was a whole brothers, the Sullivan brothers, that were in the service. All 4 or 5 brothers.
Oh, the 5 brothers.
5 brothers, and they were all killed in service.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, they made a law of sorts that said that they would not take all the members of the family, all the sons. And through this, that's why Jim remained home. Because he would have been the only one. He was the only one that was left home during the war.
Now,
but Jim and John both. Oh well, even Fred. They had tractor and trailer experiences. And Fred got out of the tractor and trailer business and went into Corning Glass and also working for Thatcher Glass when he had passed away. And John and James, the twins, they still remained as tractor and trailer drivers. Long over the road, they call it, over the road drivers. And Jim has since retired from driving truck. And that was the only job he'd ever had, is driving truck.
I was going to say, did he work for the same company all
No, he worked for a company out of Horseheads to begin with. It used to be Rotaballs Trucking when he was a kid. He used to work on the dock. He was too young to drive a truck. And then after he got old enough to drive a truck, then he worked driving trucks, and he worked for a trucking company in Elmira on the Lake Road called Bimberger's. It used to be right about where Tops Market is today. Back in there, you'd go off Lake Road and go in behind the road. It was almost like a U.
Oh.
Bambergers or Bimbergers was the name of the company. Something.
So he had long experience.
Then from there he went over to Delmont's, and he worked all those rest of those years for Delmont. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Now tell me about John. I know he's very active in the American Legion.
Yes, he was a commander of the American Legion, and then after he got the Legion in Horseheads, where he was commander, talked into starting bingo up there. They needed to make some money for their organization, and he finally won them over and got bingo in the Legion, and that helped them to get the money, some of the monies they needed. And they still have bingo there.
Oh, that's nice.
And after his first term as commander, you relinquish that, and then somebody else comes in and you vote on them. But they would no one would run against John because he had done so well as a commander of the post that in his second year, he passed away. So he never finished his second year.
Well, that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your sister Marion was a traveler.
Yeah.
A little bit. She didn't always live in Elmira-Horseheads.
Well, when she was young, I think she was in around the 5th grade, And she wanted to go live with grandmother in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, grandmother and grandfather. So mother and dad let her go, and she was raised by the grandparents in Williamsport. And then after the grandparents died, then she came to Elmira and lived there. And now she's living in Cedar Grove, North Carolina. That's just a little southeast of Greensboro. She lives on a farm, and she likes it down there. And we've visited her quite a bit, and we love it.
Oh,
Just beautiful,
great.
yes.
Now she was married. She had one daughter.
She had one daughter, yes.
What's her name?
Margaret Ann, and she's married to a very nice man. He's from Greensboro area, and his name is Isaac Walker. And they have a son, Eric Ladell Walker. And Margaret Ann has another daughter, Jenny. Well, it's Mary Jane, but they call her Jenny.
Oh, that's pretty. I like Jenny. Mm-hmm. So now, did Fred, did he have children?
Fred and his wife, Mary, adopted a son. And he's grown up now. He works in the Binghamton area. I'm not sure which. He works as a manager, night manager for Bradley's down in the Binghamton area.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm. He started here at the mall, and now he's down there, and he looks so good, and he loves it.
Oh, good. Mm-hmm. And now, Bill had children?
4.
4.
There's Larry, and Larry has children, but I can't seem to get in contact with Larry. And Susan, she has no children. And Connie, she's married and has a girl, 12 years old. And Connie's married name, let's see. I was trying to think of Susan's married name. Can't think of it right now, but Connie is married to Ronnie Davidson. His name is Ronald Davidson, and they have a little girl, Chrissy. She's 12. And the youngest is Bill Jr. They call him Skipper. And he's married with, I know one child, but it seems to me I heard that they were expecting another. He's the baby of the family.
And John had children.
John had 5. There is Sylvia. She just married, a couple of weeks ago. It was in the paper. There's Sylvia, David, Joanne, Sharon, and Donna. 4 girls and a boy. David is working as a manager in a Kmart. He was just moved from Connecticut. He just moved from Connecticut to Virginia, I think. And Sylvia works in a bank, and she's in North Carolina. Donna's married to a fella from Corning, and oh dear, trying to remember these names. Can't remember his name.
Oh, that's all right.
And they have a little boy, and Joanne is still home with her mother. Evelyn, that's John's widow, Evelyn Swan. Mm-hmm.
And Evelyn does a lot of community work, I know.
She works, I think, mornings at the YWCA, and she belongs to different clubs, and she's looking after her mother right now. Her mother's living with her, and she's quite ill. So
and how many children did John have? James.
James had 3 children, 3 girls. But I'm sorry, 2 girls and a boy. And his boy passed away when he was about 12 years old. And he has the oldest girl, Vonnie. She's married now. She works in Baltimore. They live in Baltimore. She's married with a little girl. And the other girl, Linda, is in the service. I think she's got a girl. She's not married. She's got a girl. Linda's in the service yet. And
so there were lots of children.
Mm-hmm.
And big family.
Yes.
Very nice. Now, I'm just jumping around a little bit now, but I know that you and your husband were avid campers. I want you to tell me all
Oh,
about
yes.
camping.
We have camped most of our married life. We started off with a tent and cots, and the route that most people suddenly started at in those years. Then we went from there to a little small trailer, which had no bathroom, it had no snow, it had no electric. It had an ice box instead of a refrigerator, and that was the general starting point. Then we graduated to a 25-foot camping trailer. It had everything. It left out nothing. Bathroom with a tub, double stainless steel sink, the whole works, oven, and then I baked all the time on the campground. And we just went all over the country. Every weekend we was going somewhere. The kids came up on the campground. They made more friends. We have met, and I have friends right now that I have made way back when we camped in the early years.
Your first camping experiences, did you ever run into any prejudice or did...
Never. On the whole, back in the 40s, right up until the day my husband died in 85. Never. We had something in common with the people that were out there. When you have something in common with the people that were doing these things, that is when your friendship starts and stays there. We even rode motorcycles, my husband and I.
Your husband had, he had some beautiful motorcycles.
Yeah,
right?
and we had, I don't care where we were, we had people that had motorcycles, very friendly, no prejudice there even.
Because you had
something in common with them.
And it made all the difference.
That's it, yes. Mm-hmm.
So, well,
we were quite outdoor. We were outdoors people, and see, he was raised in farm country, and I was raised in farm country, and we just loved the outdoors. And we've been all over. He liked fishing and hunting, and he thought I liked fishing because I went with him when he asked me to, and I always went hunting with him. But a conversation on the phone one day, he found out I didn't like fishing. He wasn't eavesdropping. He was just overheard me talking to somebody saying, you know, I don't like fishing. And I go with my husband fishing. And the conversation went on. So when I got off the phone, he said to me, you don't like fishing, do you? And I said, no. How do you know? He said, I overheard you. And he said, do you like hunting? And I said, I love it. He said, you're just saying that, aren't you? And I said, no, I do like hunting, but I don't like fishing. He said, you should have told me this years ago. You wouldn't have had to go with me. And I said, well, that's the wifey thing to do. You do things your husband likes, and he does things that you like. And so we give and take. And so I never had to go fishing again. But I didn't mind cleaning the fish and cooking the fish. But I didn't like to sit there with a pole in my hand trying to catch them.
So it really worked out because you would do the what other people wouldn't like to do.
I know it. But I'd stand there and clean the fish and cook them out the campground. We'd get together, a bunch of us would, where the men had gone out fishing. And we had a marvelous time.
Do you think because you had all these things, you just had a good time with your children and your husband?
We did.
And you met a lot across the country. You've met a lot of people.
Oh, have we ever? Plus, we went to jamborees, too, country and western jamborees. Now, Ray loved that. I didn't care all that much about him, but he loved them. He couldn't wait for the jamboree to start over in Addison. They was over there every year, same time, same place, and he was ready. Well, when he was ready, so was I, because me not liking it, he never knew that I didn't care for it, but I had a lot of people I met. There was an awful lot of people I met. And we've been friends. Over here in Sears, where I work now, I had a girl come up to the counter the other day, and she said, hi, aren't you Mrs. Berhannan? And I said, yes. And she was a woman now with a couple of little kids. And she said, you don't remember me, do you? And I said, no. And she said, we used to camp with you. And she told me her name, and I said, for heaven's sakes. And the woman, now, she was a little girl then, And she's a married woman with kids, and her mother and dad, we used to camp with them, and they're from Addison. And they had about 4 girls. And she told me where every one of the girls is located now, what they're doing, what her mom and dad is doing. But she recognized me, but I would never have recognized her.
Isn't that neat?
Yes.
So now...
So we've made lifelong friends here and there. Even across country we've made friends.
Isn't that neat?
We send our Christmas cards to different people we've met along our route.
Oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you been involved in any community organizations?
Well, I was involved, the biggest community organization is the Ernie Davis Community Center. I haven't found time for a lot of different things I would like to get involved with. But I did get involved in that. That meant something to me with these kids they were going in the wrong direction. When I got a chance to see this, then I decided they needed me. So I have been sort of sticking close to that organization.
And that was this organization now was the form, used to be.
The neighborhood house.
Neighborhood house.
Yes.
And after the neighborhood house closed,
Mm-hmm.
and they've had trouble getting funding.
Yes, yes.
Tell me about it.
I don't know too much about it because this went on before I was involved in it. And I'm not on the board, so I don't know too much. Just now and then I ask questions of, now Frank Gibbons is the one that got this started again. And every now and then I would ask questions when he had the time to talk to me about it, because he's a busy man too with helping to run Granny's and Granny's Restaurant and different organization he belongs to. But when I volunteered 3 days a week up there at the community center, then I found out the girl wasn't coming on Fridays, so I volunteered for Fridays. So that gave me 4 days up there. And Ernie Davis's mother, Marie Fleming, she comes in every Monday. So that left just the 2 of us then and volunteer. They kept dropping out, some of the volunteers did, but Marie and I stuck there. Now about the fundings and the grants and things, I don't know too much about that, but I'm coming back into it now.
Well, tell me about the children then. The children that you, what is it, from...
The age group was, when I was there a couple of years ago, it was from 5 years old to 13. Now we have a new head running it, Reverend Mallory from the Minnie Floyd Church. And he is working in with the grants, and he's got this in the I don't know, I guess he wrote up the thing to begin with, wrote up the
new
proposal and everything, and but they didn't let him take over to help run it at that time. But now they're letting him take over because his ideas are the way it's supposed to be, and we're trying to get it off the ground. As to letting the children from 5 to 17 now, he wants them to, all the housing units, he wants them to compete against one another in sports. Then after we build them up in the sports such as soccer and basketball and different games, after they're built up and know how to play these games, they're going to be turned over to the Elmira sports. There's teams in the Elmira, some teams in Elmira here that they can go at higher level.
Oh, that's
But
great.
and then he and I talked one day about getting the children now, some of the girls that would like to cook, into cooking again. Well, since the parole board has taken over part of the which used to be the neighborhood house, the center doesn't have much space. In fact, they got rid of all the cooking, the stoves and what have you there, the refrigerators. But he found out that the Ernie Davis, that the Jones Court has a community room downstairs. And being so close to the Ernie Davis Center, he's going to find out if it's possible for the cooking class to be over there in that room, and maybe he can get a cooking class started over there.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you feel with all the problems with the children, that with you volunteering and seeing that they need someone they can communicate with, that communication is just lacking for the whole area, and that the children feel that people really don't care, and that sports and games can really, it's more than sports and games that they're learning there. They're learning to get along with people and how to treat each other.
Right.
Do you feel,
well,
tell me a little about that.
They do need communication. They need someone that cares. You're right. I had an experience with a brother and sister that used to live there, and they would come to the center frowning. They were always frowning, and I don't care what I said to them, it didn't matter. The girl was quick to say shut up, and sometimes cuss you out. And they were, I thought, the sweetest little things. They weren't real young. I think they was around, well, they were 7 and 9 or 7 and 10, something like that. The boy was the oldest. And I kept saying there's got to be a way to reach them. Then I discovered what it was, a little hug. And the boy just melted. I would talk to him, and all of a sudden that frown has turned into a smile. And one day he came to me and he said, we're going to move. And I hadn't won him over too good yet, but it was enough to see the smile and see that he was well pleased with the idea of that little hug was making a big difference in his life. So I said, where are you moving to? And he said, I don't know, Connecticut or maybe, what did he say, maybe Pittsburgh, I think he said. And I couldn't understand why he thought one area away from the other areas where they were going to move. It didn't make sense. I found out later that the city had taken the children away from their mother. And he's still in Elmira, but he's in another section. He's in a foster home. And I would love to go see him, but I don't know where he is. I could inquire, I guess.
Well, it was really wonderful, and you really took that
Yeah.
down and turned it upside
Yes,
down.
I did. Uh-huh.
And this is what if we start at that age.
Yes, they need that little hands-on, a little touching and a little hug that they don't get at home. They need someone that cares. Now, there's some I've tried it with. It doesn't work. So there's something else that's probably they need along with that.
In other words, it's not really an easy
It's not
job.
easy at all.
I mean, it really
No.
challenges your,
Yes.
what can I do?
Yes.
What can I do next, right?
Well, now, there's another boy, and he's into trouble all the time. And he gets his sister into trouble all the time. This other boy, he was always into something. And one day, one of the workers took him aside and asked him something about reading. And I just knew this boy was not going to sit down and read. But she asked him to get the book, and he came over near where I was sitting, and he started reading. And I found out that was his main thing, reading. He loves it. And he took 3 of the books home from the library at the center.
Well, that's great.
So you've got to find the area in which you can work with each child. Everyone's different.
That's really good. Now, were you directly involved in the civil rights movement of the 60s and 70s?
No, I wasn't. No.
From that time, what events of the 60s and 70s do you most clearly remember from where you were at that time?
We had moved up here from Elmira, because Urban Renewal went through where we were living on John Street. And we had moved up here, so that didn't get me close to what was going on in Elmira, because there was nobody up here in the country or this area that was had any involvement that I knew of in the civil rights. Plus, we only had one vehicle. My husband took that back and forth to work, so I was stranded here in the country. So I had no involvement whatsoever.
What did you think about the 60s and 70s now as you look back at it?
Well, I thought about some of the things were marvelous. of what they were doing. And there was other things that didn't make much sense. Some of the things, a couple of things I saw, and I don't think these kids had any more idea what they were doing than my cat would know. Because I went to Elmira one night with my husband to a grocery store. And this was on a store that was right across from the academy, which used to be the academy there on Lake Street then. And as we approached the store, we saw policemen with helmets on and billy clubs drawn. Then we noticed a big crowd. And they were all little kids. Now that was 10 o'clock at night, and those kids had no business out there that time of night. And then I happened to look up between the stores. At the end of the store, there was some little kids about 5 years old. They would come up to the sidewalk and toss rocks at the crowd. Now this was supposed to be, I think, a well-managed civil rights movement of marching somewhere. I don't know where. I never did find out. But then the little kids and the troublemakers got involved, and they had to try to stop it. Now that was not what I call a well-planned civil rights movement, if that's what it was supposed to be. I think it started out to be, but that's why I say some was well managed and some wasn't. Some knew what they were marching for, some didn't. And far be it from me to try to figure out which was which.
Well, you're right. So many things good happened,
Yes.
and so many things that weren't good happened too, and it did spoil
Yes.
The effects of the good some of them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me any significant changes that you see now in the 70s and 80s in civil rights for not just for blacks, but for women, for pro-life, or whatever you think of that, people for the disadvantaged people.
They have made great stride, I think, in the people that are confined to wheelchairs and use crutches and things. They have fixed curbs and things for them to get up to them, enlarged the doors, fixed bathrooms for them to exit in and out of. They have done a lot in that area. They have done, I'm not going to say made a great stride in women's rights. They've come a long way, but they've got a long way to go yet.
It's still a man's world, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is. I don't care how you slice it, it's still a man's world.
What do you think women should be? You've seen a lot of women over your lifetime now. What do you think women should be doing to enhance their chances? Are they doing the right thing, or are they doing the wrong thing?
Back when women were asking for equal rights, and these women decided they didn't want the men to open doors for them, or escort them across streets, or pull their chair out. I didn't like that, because I love to have a man take my arm across the street, open doors for me, seat me. I love it, and I don't think the women should have done that. They went a little too far there. And act like a lady, act like a woman, but still stand up for what you think is right. But some of the things, I think we hurt ourselves in certain areas by our demands. There was a lot of things we demanded we should have gotten. We should have had a lot of the things by now. And the same paycheck the man gets, if we do his work, the same kind of work he does, we should have the same amount of money that he has. And but I don't see some of the areas where they've made great stride in.
Do you think in this, when women or girls get into high school, do you think that the education counselors should be telling girls to take more math, more science, if they want the type of men's jobs, or because traditionally they've either, usually the ones that are college bound, they have them take take those Regents courses. But if they're not college bound, and not everyone is,
No.
they don't have them do that. Do you
Mhm.
think that maybe at the schools they should be thinking a little bit differently?
Oh dear, it's been so long since I've heard about what they're teaching in schools and anything about the guidance teachers, because I have no one in school anymore that I don't know. But you know, I think if a person has the ability to go on with certain things and the potential, if the teacher notices that, I think he should, or he or she should make let the parent talk with the parents, talk with that student, and show him or her where it would be to their advantage, and not just overlook it. Because sometimes the student has some potentials there that they can't see or the parents can't see.
That's right. And they're not aware of.
That's right. Yeah. Like when my son Dan used to be the class clown, and we knew he could do the work, and the teacher came to our house one evening. We knew he was coming. He made an appointment with us, and he said, Dan has good potentials. He could be a straight A student if he'd stop clowning. He's a class clown. And so we sat there and talked with him, and he buckled down and he began to straighten out his act, and he began to get good grades. But he liked clowning around. Liked to make the teacher laugh, the kids laugh, but it wasn't funny to the teacher.
No, it's a little bit, but not too much.
Right.
So you've got cooperation and it worked out.
That's right, it worked out good. And he has potentials, and Dan can do anything he wants to do.
That's great.
Yes.
Well, now tell me, this is a question that you're probably not prepared for, but women of the childbearing ages, how do you feel about them? Do you feel that they should have the right to say they're going to have that child, or do you feel that how do you feel about abortion?
Do you know, I've thought about this so long. I've tried to put myself in the place of what I hear on television, what I read in newspaper. I don't know. I keep saying it's the woman's body. She should be able to know what she wants. Then I think the man sometimes steps in and he says, I'm the one that sired that child. I should be able to say what she should do. So there you are. You've got two people that was responsible for this egg to start this baby. And I keep saying, yes, they should have the right to say. Well, then I think about what the other part of it, the abortion part. And I don't know. I figure you can't make a decision unless you have gone through that yourself. You've got to be able to walk down that road yourself, cross that bridge yourself before you can tell somebody else what to do or what not to do. I just don't know. I'm still out there on a limb.
So this is one of the things that perhaps should not be ever in politics.
That's right. I would say no there. Definitely not. Let them take care of the government the way it should be, and less on these problems that has to do with our personal lives. Our taxes, yes, they have a say-so over that. They have a say-so over a lot of our living, but not that. Not that.
I never thought about that, but that's very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked that
Yeah.
question. No, really, because it's like you say,
you just don't know, and you can't.
You've got to go through that yourself.
Yes, to take a stand, I would not dare to venture to tell anybody or suggest to anybody what they should or shouldn't do.
Well, we're near the end of our interview, and I'd like to know if there's anything that you'd like to say that I haven't covered, or what you think of an oral history project, or what we're doing.
You've covered so much, I don't know. I don't think you've left out anything, have you? I can't think of a thing. You've covered my whole family.
Do you think this type of project is well worth it?
What are we going to...
Well, what we're going to do, the oral History Project is going to be available. This tape is going to be available for anyone who wants to come in and listen to what some of the blacks in of our area, in this area, have experienced. And I think it's too bad we couldn't have done some people like Bernice Scott, who was a historian in Horseheads, and I'm so sorry I never did this.
Yeah.
Or like your mother, tales that, she could have told about her childhood. But this is going to be made available to the general public, and, we hopefully that we can do a lot more of this type of thing, but experiences, what people experienced in your life and how you saw it.
Oh, yes.
Because everybody's view is different.
Yeah.
That's a good part of it. And I thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
And it's been a pleasure to listen. I wish I could do another tape.
Oh, dear. If I think of any more in the near future, why, maybe I ought to get in touch with you then, huh?
Well, yes. We
All
would
right.
like that.
Okay.
Again, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Nellie.